Hi again, Mark here from Talkingbass. This week we're going to look at a really famous bass riff that sounds great but also works as fantastic practice in playing ghost notes. It's the main bass riff from the song December 63, Oh What a Night by Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons, played by Don Ciccone. Now, before we get started, remember to give us a like, comment, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell to get updates on the weekly lesson releases every Friday. As always, the lesson material and practice track can be found over at the Talkingbass website, so just click the link in the info below to play along. Then, while you're there, check out the lesson map where you'll find over 450 free bass lessons, all organised and systemised for ease of navigation. Then, if that floats your boat, you can sign up for the free membership to gain access to the members area, where you'll find a ton of free practice resources and downloads like the scale reference manual ebook and the 25 bass riff challenge. So go check it out. Okay, let's have a quick listen to the riff from December 63 played along to the practice track at the original tempo of 106 beats per minute. 1, 2, 3, 4. So first let's just run through the notes and then I'll give you some pointers on all this ghost note malarkey that's going on. So we're in the key of D flat major, and really we're working up through a D flat major scale. Okay, so we start on a D flat, 4th fret of the A string, and we have that note, and then we have a ghost note. So ghost note, laying our hand over the strings and plucking to get that dull thud. I'll come to that in a minute and we'll look at it in depth. So we've got D flat, ghost note. So then we have the E flat, 6th fret of the A string, and another ghost note, which leads us into the F at the 3rd fret of the E string. So we've got then 2 hits on the G flat at the 4th fret of the D string. Then another single ghost note. Next we have 2 hits on the G flat again at the 4th fret of the D string with a single ghost note between them. So we have, okay, so G flat, ghost note, G flat, so then A flat at the 6th fret of the D string. So you can see there that we've just come up the first 5 notes of the D flat major scale. Just putting those ghost notes in there. And the chord progression of this works from the D flat to the G flat and the A flat. So we're outlining the chords there. So again, slowly. Finally, we finish off with this run to bring us back to the D flat. So we have the A flat at the 6th fret of the D string, then drop down the octave to the A flat at the 4th fret of the E string, and then we just come up through the scale. So A flat, B flat, C, and then the D flat. So 4th and 6th frets on the E string, 3rd fret on the A string, leading us back into that D flat at the 4th fret. And that's it. So very slowly. Okay, so let's have a look at ghost notes. Now, I've already covered ghost notes in a few of the lessons here on the channel, so I'll link to some of the lessons here if you want to take them further. But let's just look at the basics here so we can get through this riff. So the basic idea behind a ghost note is that we're getting a dull, percussive kind of thud sound by holding that hand across the strings without actually pressing down a note. And we pluck the string like this. Okay, that's it, just that dull thud. So all I'm doing is getting that hand, holding it across the strings. So I'm not pressing down on a note, I'm just holding it across dead weight, and there's the ghost note. Now, that's the basic idea, and most of you probably know that already. But putting those little ghost notes into a bass line might often seem really awkward if you're not used to them, because you've got to go from fretted note to ghost note and back, you know, all of that. So I'm going to show you my main method for teaching them by way of what I call the home position. So I call this home position, but that's my name for it. You know, you won't really hear it anywhere else, but you will see a lot of players doing this kind of instinctively, naturally. Now, home position is a default hand position that you can use for most bass lines, whether you're playing ghost notes or not. It's particularly good for slapping and pick playing when you're trying to lock down all those pesky open strings that tend to ring out when you're not playing them. And it basically looks like this. So let's say that we're going to be playing roughly around a C, 3rd fret of the A string. Okay, so get that first finger there, and I'm going to lay that pretty much across the strings there around the 3rd fret. And I'm not pushing down at all, I'm just laying it on the strings. So if I do that, you'll pretty much hear some harmonics. Now, I'm only doing this from the A string across to the G string, but you know, if you're going to be playing on the E string, you can do it across all of the strings. It all depends on what string you're playing. So there's the first finger across the A, D, and G strings there. Then I just take that 2nd, 3rd, and 4th finger and bring them down. So now that's completely dead. So all we're getting there is ghost notes. So that's the first finger there across the A, D, and G strings, and then the 2nd and 3rd finger, you can see there, they're kind of extending a little bit across, beyond the side of the neck, and then the 4th finger is roughly around the E and A strings there. So that's the home position, and that's a really, really good default hand position. So picture yourself, you're on stage, you've just turned up the volume, amps on, all of that stuff. Not playing any songs yet, but everything's live, you've got everything turned up. If you put your hand like this, you don't have to worry about banging the bass, any of that stuff. You're not going to get any dodgy notes, there's not going to be any hiss, there's not going to be any of that stuff because it's all locked down because you've got that hand in home position. So we're starting from a position of silence. Then to get a note, let's say that's C at the 3rd fret of the A string, if my hand is positioned there ready with that first finger of the 3rd fret, all I've got to do is raise the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th fingers, push down on that 3rd fret with the first finger, and pluck. And we do all of that at the same time. So we're in home position, and then raise those, press down, pluck simultaneously. Okay? So we're starting with the note choked, then we allow the note to come through. Then, to choke that note off, we simply go back to home position. So that's total note control, starting with the home position, allow the note through, and then choke it off. Now, the finger that we use to fret the note is pretty much irrelevant. Whichever finger you use, we can move from home position and back. So the main point here is that we're striving to work from that default position of silence. So if I've got my hand there, with that first finger of that 3rd fret, I can play the C with the first finger and then back. I can play with the 4th finger and then back, 2nd finger, whatever. Whatever I want to do, I can then return to that home position and that position of silence. Now, as I mentioned, this is a really good position for playing techniques like slapping and pick playing, because in those techniques, you don't have the advantage of the thumb when it comes to locking down the unwanted strings. So if I'm slapping, you've got to do a lot of stuff with this hand. You've got to be locking it all down. And with this home position, that's our default position of silence. So the home position is great for locking things down and getting rid of noise, but it's also great for ghost notes, because look, when I'm in that home position, if I pluck a string, I get a ghost note. We don't have to start thinking about the intricacies of how much to hold the string down when muting or anything like that. It's just home position. It's how we're starting. Most ghost notes lead into normal fretted notes. So you might have 1, 2, you might even have 3. But in each of those instances, we're leading into a note. Again, this makes that home position really useful. So before trying December 63, just try playing some single 16th note ghost notes leading into a C. So if we take the C there, 3rd fret of the A string, we could play the note and just lead into it with a ghost note. So you get into home position, play the ghost note, and then allow the note through. So just try it slowly. Then try 2. So okay? You can also try playing up and down through a major scale in that same manner. So I might start with just fretting with one finger, working up through, let's say, a C major scale, playing a single ghost note into them. So here we have 2 ghost notes. And you'll notice there that I wasn't just using one finger for the fretting hand, so that's the next thing. You want to try actually just working up using whichever fingers you need. So if you were to play, you know, just starting on the 2nd finger, now, you'll probably find it quite tricky doing it like that, you know, just using the 2nd, 4th, 1st, 2nd, 4th, you know, using the correct fingering. So you'll probably start using the 1st finger more at times because it's actually easier to go from a 1st finger to a ghost note, or ghost note into a 1st finger, than it is to a 2nd finger. So you'll probably find when you're playing things like that, you're going to be using the 1st and 4th fingers more, you know, in the fretting hand. So 2 ghost notes into each. Okay, so I've just come up through that C major just using the 1st and 4th fingers. So it makes it a lot easier for going between that home position, you know, and the 1st and 4th positions. The 2nd and 3rd fingers are quite tricky. So now we can apply all of that to playing December 63. So just working through slowly, 2, 3, 4. Now, as one last thing, this riff is a perfect example of how to use ghost notes in a tasteful manner. It's really easy when you get started with ghost notes to overdo them. I remember putting them into everything that I was playing, and I'd be putting, you know, way more into everything than I should. And it's so easy to fall into that trap, which can make your bass lines sound too busy and just all round bad. So, as an example, here's December 63 again, but with way too many ghost notes. On its own, in your bedroom, you might be thinking you're the next Jaco Pastorius, but play that in a band setting and it can all start to sound too cluttered. Don doesn't stick to any one way of playing the riff in the original recording, but he does tend to stick to 2 general ways of playing it. First of all, he has the way that we've already played it, where we've got the ghost note before each of those 3 notes, or just on the first, between the first 2, so, you know, just between that D flat and the E flat. But when he does that, he can then play a ghost note before the G flat, so. Okay, or when he plays it on all the first 3, he misses the one out leading into the G flat. He's keeping it a lot more subdued. You know, so if he puts one in one area, he might take one out later on. Okay, now let's put on that practice track and I'll play through 3 different versions of the lines we can compare. First of all, the original line that I showed. 2, 3, 4. Now a little more sparse at the start. 2, 3, 4. Now, let's try it way too busy. 3, 4. So you can hear that's way too cluttered. Now the original. 3, 4. So you can hear there how when it comes to ghost notes, less is often more. Don't be in a hurry to fill all your lines with loads of ghost notes. They can sound cool away from a song, but in a band setting, it's really easy to overdo it. Okay, so that's December 63. Be sure to leave a like, a comment, and subscribe to the channel for new lessons every Friday. As always, the lesson material is all there over at Talking Bass, so just follow the link below to play through with the track, and then go check out all the other free bass goodies on the site. Okay? I'll see you next week.